Hey everyone, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is retired Marine Corps Major Teddy Colgate, who is the CEO and founder of First Coast Heroes Outreach. And today we'll be discussing topics such as PTSD, moral injury, military transition, and how to find purpose, as well as discussing the role of faith in overcoming fear. And as a veteran himself, Teddy brings a wealth of personal and professional experience to these issues. And before we get started, I want to first welcome Teddy to the show. Welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Scott. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be a good conversation. We are having a little brief chat before we started recording here, and I already can tell it's going to be a great conversation. Um, so you served in the Marine Corps, and now you work with First Coast Heroes Outreach. Um, Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got there from being in the Marine Corps and working your way now to what you're doing.
Okay. I did 22 years in the Marine Corps, and I did 10 years enlisted, and then I was commissioned, and I did 12 years as an officer, and retired, and just lost that camaraderie, lost the tribe, if you will, and I went out and tried to find that, and I found it in a motorcycle club comprised of veterans, and which most of the motorcycle clubs out there, or a large percentage of them, have military backgrounds. And then we just kind of came together and decided, you know what, we can do a little bit more. So we created a nonprofit, and at the time, we just took care of Marines and Marine families. And then as we evolved, I tried to make sure that the mission became relevant to what we were dealing with, and we opened it up to all veterans, and then a few years back we opened it up to first responders and veterans, because a lot of first responders deal with the same types of things that veterans do. So a place to share, to care, and to be protected with your own people, I guess, was really the basis of what we did. We also started to evolve that mission early on and focus on the mental health. And since then, we have evolved again and just tried to focus on the resource allocation and the education to be proactive in what those guys and gals need. There's a lot of organizations out there um, that will react to horrible things. So the education piece for us, and getting awareness out that all the special things out there available to veterans and first responders, we try to put that A and B together. If somebody needs something, we try to find that person that can provide that. So we do that now very proactively. Instead of just waiting for crisis to happen, we actually try to get out in front of some of these things that cause crisis, and some of these things that weigh on these folks' minds.
I think that's an important piece of it because uh, I know I tell this story a lot when folks are talking about their transition out of the military. A lot of times you get information presented to you. Here are the services that are available to you as a veteran now, as you're making that transition. And sometimes it's packets and packets of information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. You're just getting so much thrown at you all at once. And 95% of that stuff you don't need right at that moment
That's right.
that you're transitioning out. Um, you know, because some of it, like you're talking about, some of it's mental health services. Well, if your mental health is in good shape at that point, well, maybe you don't need that right now, or at least may not think you need it, and so you kind of forget about those things a lot of times. And when you get to that point where now all of a sudden you're in crisis mode and things are feels like the walls are crumbling in on you, and the the room is suffocating you and everything, like you just have so much going on that you can't think clearly. uh, Taking the time to figure out what those resources are is going to be probably pretty difficult, and so having somebody there who's on your side who can help you out with that, I think, is an important important aspect of what it is that you guys do, to be able to help guide people to the right resources, given their circumstances, maybe even geographical considerations and things like that. Taking into consideration all of those things to get people in front of uh, the right providers or the right services so that they can get the help that they need without stressing too much in trying to figure that out on their own, right? Is that kind of the gist of it?
It is. So me being the dare I say the face or the cookie cutter template that we are legitimately trying to prevent at this point.
Hmm.
So my journey is we're probably over a decade, so getting closer to 15 years now, and I have had to struggle and grind, over a decade trying to figure a lot of these things out. So what we're trying to do and our intent is to lessen that journey and to lessen the grind and lessen the struggle for guys and gals that don't have to wait a decade to figure some things out.
Right.
And so using myself as one of those poor examples, or the example of not what to do, um, has allowed us to help folks shorten their time before they start understanding and finding the answers that they're seeking. So that's the goal,
Hmm.
is to improve quality of life for folks that have served in any capacity and get them to living their best life as soon as absolutely possible. And for me, it was at least a decade of the VA throwing medicine at you or pills, um, you know, throwing everything under a one blanket of PTSD,
Yeah.
and things like that. So there's so much out there that can help, and a lot of folks just want to understand, why am I like this, or why do I do this, or why don't I do this, So if you can get some of those questions answered earlier than a decade, then you start improving quality of life, and that's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, you think about a decade, that's a significant chunk of time. Some people spend less time in the military, never mind, having to struggle and deal with, never mind, having to struggle and deal. Um, and the VA, not knocking them, they have a lot of great people doing a lot of great things, um, but sometimes they don't move all that quick with things, and sometimes it takes quite a while to kind of drill down to the root cause of things. They run you through different tests and different um, types of therapies, medications that you're talking about. They throw all these things at you, and those might not be the right things, and they may not know that until after you go and try those things. It's like, oh, that didn't work. Well, okay, well, maybe it isn't PTSD. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
Um,
The VA, and again, like you said, they do a lot of great things.
mhm.
Personally, from my experience, I believe that they are missing the mark on some of the mental health side,
Yeah,
because everything is blanketed under PTSD. And just now they are starting to understand the aspect of moral injury. And I know that's on one of our topics, but
sure.
they're starting to understand some of that stuff. And folks, just because you have symptoms of PTSD, it's not treatable the same,
Mhm.
and you cannot put folks in group counseling or group settings that are at opposite ends of the spectrum for symptomatic issues of PTSD,
Yeah.
because it exacerbates one, it justifies another. I had a guy that was classified with PTSD from being yelled at boot camp. I mean, you know, I it's not the same. You know what I
No.
mean? And then I had another lady that was she she had PTSD documented, because and she wouldn't get on an airplane. And the question was, and a couple of the guys were like, "Oh man, she must have had a terrible aircraft accident or whatever." No, she flew on an airplane twice, once to go to Kuwait and once to come back from Kuwait. So we were thinking, okay, well maybe that's her jump off point. No, she was one of those processors at Kuwait. So if you've ever been in theater, you
Yep.
understand, that, well, shoot, Kuwait is like the you know it's the cushiest place
That's
that
the
you.
hub.
Yes,
That's like, Atlanta in
that's
the United
exactly right.
States, or
Yeah,
Dallas, or, Chicago or something like that, where, if you're flying and you need to make a connection, you're probably going through one of those places, and
right.
that's Kuwait for the folks who don't know.
So it's not the same,
Right.
and but yet the VA puts all these people together, and then a buddy of mine was sitting there, and he's got scars from chest all the ways to his fingertip from getting blown up and everything else, and it's like it's not the same. So
Right.
that's one of the shortfalls, in my opinion, that the VA have. And then when they throw medicine at you nonstop, um, guys just stop taking medicine. They,
Yeah.
they just do. And um, I recently had the opportunity to go to the Marcus Institute for Brain Health up in Colorado. So based off of my TBI and things like that, and life changing, very educational, but it allowed me to process things more efficiently and understand things more efficiently. And that's really where finally, for the past 12 years, was the first time that I realized that I suffered from the moral injury aspect more so than PTSD.
Mhm.
Now, and they're very, uh, they touch and they're overlapping and things like that. But you know, moral injuries are the burden of command, and did I do enough, and what did I do, and all these things. But the VA, up until I came back and I asked this specific question from the VA about moral injury, and the treatment for that, that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And
Right.
I can't be the only person that was legitimately, when they told me that in Colorado, at Marcus, it was, I was blown away. And I mean, tears were flowing because it finally made sense. And
Yeah.
that's an injustice. I mean, I had, for a decade, I had accepted that, hey, this is just what I am. This is who I
Mhm.
am. I'm pissed off all the time. I'm angry. I don't sleep. All these things. I have no empathy. I don't care about, whatever I care about is right here, right now. And um, you self isolate and you do all these things because you don't understand.
Right.
And all you know is, well, this is what I am and this is what I have to deal with. So Um, that's the difference with the VA treatment and these other agencies that are figuring these things out. And a lot of these agencies now are figuring it out based off of like operators that you know are throwing themselves at the mercy. Like I am trying to do right by my family at this point because they have stuck by me for however long and however many deployments. I need to be the best version of me
Right.
for them, you know. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah, and that's a common thing that I hear from other folks who are going through one treatment or another, is that I'm doing this for somebody else. I'm doing it for my spouse. I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for maybe my parents, or somebody else. I'm doing it for somebody else because they deserve a better version of me
that's
than
right.
what I can currently provide them with. And that's admirable. And you think about where people are coming from military service. There's that selfless service aspect that comes from military service. And so, of course, we're going to have that mindset where I need to be the best soldier, marine, airman, sailor, whatever. I need to be the best that I can be, in order to do my job effectively as a service member. Um, and then you get out. Well, now I have a different label. I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm a father. Okay, well, I need to be the best father that I could be. So, okay, right now I can't be the best father because I got whatever I got going on in my head. Um, how do I fix that? How do I get to be the best father? So let me do that for them. Is a very common thing that I hear from other people. And when you don't, when you can't identify the problem correctly, it's kind of hard to treat that problem,
That's
right?
right.
Um, and PTSD is a common label that gets thrown at lots of different things. And I think it's maybe sort of like a Venn diagram where you got overlapping circles where there's a bunch of different conditions and you may fit in a different quadrant or whatever. You may fit in a different section of those overlapping circles. And maybe there's a touch of PTSD, depending on what it is. Maybe there's some moral injury involved. Maybe it's depression or anxiety or I, I'm not a mental health guy, professional, so I don't know. There could be other things that are thrown in that mix, and they may all overlap to some extent. And maybe you where you fit doesn't necessarily fit maybe in the nice and neat in that PTSD category. Maybe you're more closer on the moral injury side, and so maybe your treatment has to be focused more on that. Um, and I know you mentioned moral injuries, which I only recently found out about myself, probably 4 or 5 years ago, when uh, actually through doing this podcast is where that term first came up to me. Um, but I had been in treatment for mental health for years prior to that, and never heard the term
Yeah.
before. And so, to your point, when I first heard that, I was like, "That's a pretty interesting concept. Why haven't I heard that yet?" And I
Yeah.
kind of went down that rabbit hole of what is this, and could that apply? All that type of stuff. So, actually, it would be kind of a great time here for maybe anybody who is hearing this for the first time. W- Could you explain really what moral injury is and how it might affect a person, and kind of the overview of that as far as moral injury is concerned?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm no expert. All I know is what I continue to work on and things like that. So let me
Mhm.
caveat that with that.
Sure.
Um, but the moral injury is the things that are associated with like prolonged exposure, burden of command, shame, guilt, all those things. And what happens is our brains start to take on this ideal that, okay, I did something bad, right? Well, the moral side of that is I'm a bad person, right?
Hmm.
So you layer those things on a deployment, right? And say you did something and you had to make a judgment call right then, right there to take out, a family, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Because they were locked and loaded and they were ready to cause harm on whoever was around you. So when you do something like that in the moment, um, you are making a tactical command decision um, to save lives, to save American lives, to save assets, or what have you. So when you process that after the fact, now you're dealing with, you just, you know basically took out a family of whatever, and um, which is not normal, right?
Yeah.
That,
Right.
whether they are armed, and whether they're wearing vest or whatever. The fact is, at that moment in time, in that place that you were standing, they were combative. But in our minds, we don't process that the same way when we're now laying on our cot, or you know taking a break, or you don't process that the same. So you start thinking about the family that was in that vehicle, or vehicle, IED, VBED, what have you. you can't separate those two, or
Right.
your mind can't morally. So you start thinking about that, and then you say, okay, well, I did a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you peel back the layers of that, and then you start questioning yourself, and you say, okay, I did a bad thing. I'm a bad person, right? So now, by doing something that saved lives, and it was a good thing or what have you, now you've peeled that so far back that now you're questioning all the things that you do in life and the decisions that you make
Hmm.
because of one tactical decision, hence the moral injury.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in a situation like the one that you're describing, it's almost an impossible decision to come out and say, yes, I made the right decision on that, because in one case maybe you're killing a family. It sucks. It's terrible, but I mean, it is war, and things like that do happen. Um, on the other hand, if you did nothing, that could cause American service members to be killed, and so there's that conflict where you could do one thing or the other. Either way, you're probably going to come out, questioning yourself, like, did I do the right thing? Was this, the right thing, the moral thing to do? Um, and a lot of times that's hard. It's hard to wrap your head around that. It's hard to, make that tactical decision, like you said, and come out on the other side and say, well, yeah, I needed to do that. It sucks that that was the outcome, but I needed to. It's hard to do that. Now, you could probably look at somebody else who is in the same exact situation. If you were to like remove yourself from that situation and put somebody else in that situation, you might be like, yeah, dude, you totally should have done that. Like, there's no question. You're 100% in the right, and you're good to go. And you could probably look at somebody else, but when you're looking at it from yourself, a lot of times we're harder on ourselves than we are on other people. A lot of times, right?
That that
And
is
that's,
that is 100% accurate.
yeah,
And
and that's it's hard to wrap your head around that, and be able to remove yourself from that situation and just put, even put a fictitious person in that same situation and say, okay, this Charlie Brown or whoever, this
Mhm.
other person in this situation, if they did what I did, would I judge them any differently? Would I be like, oh
Right.
man, that's a terrible person for doing what they did? Like, no, probably, mostly likely not, right?
There's a lot of scenario based training that occurs now prior to deployments,
Hmm.
and it's these scenarios right here that are now implemented because um, there's a difference between making a decision and being decisive, especially
Yeah.
in a tactical environment. So um, we will always, and I'm not going to speak for all services, but I will say that Marines will always push and train their leaders to be decisive
Hmm.
because um, you know that's that's the opportunity that you have to um, make the most impact and save the most lives. So
Yeah, 100%. And I think, when you have people who go through probably the training that you and I maybe have gone through, it was more geared towards, hey, you're gonna have military age males who are the the folks that that you gotta look out for, and those are gonna be the threats, and that's gonna be the thing that you look out for. But then you get in the real world, you get boots on the ground, and all of a sudden there's a woman with a vest strapped to her, and it's like, okay, well, I wasn't expecting that, or maybe even a kid, or something like that, where it's like, well, shit, that was not that was not laid out for me, and it
yeah,
wasn't something that I mentally prepared myself for. And so there's those types of situations that might happen as well, right?
yeah,
So yeah, moral injuries, they're tricky, and like I said, we are hard on ourselves with that. Um, I'm not, again, not a mental health professional, so I don't know specifically the treatment for these types of things, but um, it's different. Like you said, it's
yeah.
different than PTSD. It's different than other types of things, but um, it's important to identify what the problem is, right? And so get get that problem identified first before getting into the whatever the treatment is.
Yeah,
And
and I think some of it is it's not the medicine. You can't just throw medicine at things like that.
yeah,
And I think that's the misnomer that the VA wraps themselves around. Is like, okay, all right, here's medicine, or
yeah,
here's more, SSNR or NRIs or SSRIs or whatever the
right,
classifications are. But it's like, no, that's, so many guys stop taking those things because they want to feel and they want to understand and they want to process those things, make sense of it, if you will. And the only way you do that is almost by just exposing it and, accepting it,
hmm,
acknowledging it, that, I made the best decision with what I had at the time. And I was able to, save folks, um, you know, but, yeah,
right,
so it's a challenge, and it's not just like combat related either. I'll give you my other example that like floored me was, when my folks divorced. I was angry, and and then fast forward, and I'm dealing with all these things, and I can't, you know, my ex and I, we have three sons, and I just, was not going to be around very long because I couldn't process anything. I didn't understand anything. So for the sake of all of our lives, I ended up leaving. And now, as I process these two things, they're stacked right on top of each other. And the things that I feel, or I felt as a child, I layer those things on my three sons, like internally, like I feel what they're feeling, and it kills me. And
yeah,
there's not a day goes by that I don't try to uh, process that and make sure that they understand that when I left, I didn't have a choice. Um, it was shortly after I had put a 45 in my mouth because I was done, and my youngest son came in and asked me for juice. And I hope at one point, he's 12 now, and I hope at one day pretty soon I'll be able to share the story that he legitimately he saved my life. And you know you can't process those things when you're so in tune and conflicted because you don't understand any of it.
uh-huh,
So, um, yeah. So I mean, the moral injury thing is its own, you know, bridge to cross, and it's a difficult one. And I think now it's just starting to get some traction.
right,
Um, so I'm super thankful for uh, the Marcus Institute to be able to like help me understand that aspect, because it has allowed me to improve uh, how I conduct myself every day and things like that. And the one thing we talked about was how when you improve yourself, everyone around you feels that and things like that. So um,
it's
that's
like a
another
ripple
thing.
effect, right?
The ripple effect, exactly
Yeah,
right. And people think that the ripple effect is just positive, but it's really not. So
hmm,
when you don't, um, get this help, and accept that you don't have to be an asshole just because you're dealing with things, and we're all dealing with something, but it doesn't give you the right to be an asshole, because that negatively ripples to everybody in your family or everyone in your circle as well. Nobody wants to be
right,
around you. So that ripple effect is probably one of the most powerful motivators. When you feel it and when you see it, because you make that small, like I'll say for me, I when I came back from Colorado, I probably had a 5-8% increase in my quality of life. Uh, well, that's doubled for people around me, because now they want to be around me more. Or it's I'm I'm starting to have signs of normalcy again, or
Right.
whatever we perceive as normal, But um, so that just goes, and it snowballs, and it's a really nice thing to be involved with, or to feel when you start to positively impact people's lives.
Yeah, and when you have that sort of thing happen where you're doing a little bit better, so other people want to spend more time with you and create those good memories and have those positive experiences, maybe, as a in a family situation, maybe it's a family game night or something, watching a movie together, doing something, going for a walk or whatever it is, doing something together versus being apart like you may have done before. Now you're together and now you're doing something positive, which is going to help elevate your mood and their mood even more. And then it's like, hey, well, that was good. We enjoyed that. That was a fun time. Let's do more of that. And then the next day you do something similar. And it kind of snowballs and becomes this bigger thing of more and more positive experiences. Now, instead of just going for a walk, maybe after dinner or something, maybe you're, uh, going out to a sporting event if that's your thing. If you go to a baseball game or something, and now you can enjoy that together, and then there's that next thing and something bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's stuff that maybe before you wouldn't have even considered doing some of
Yeah,
those things, but then all those positive experiences lead up to something bigger, uh, and that's a great experience to
yeah.
have, right?
Well, and so PTSD, one of the biggest things that people relate with that is avoidance,
Yeah,
isolation, all those things, right? So, um, but when you start to open up your mind and your awareness that, what, everyone's not out to get me, there's not something bad around every corner, and that only happens by processing through some of these things. So,
sure.
um, but again, it's baby steps. It's like, okay, after dinner, and like all summer long, I remember we'd get out and we'd go walk after dinner, whatever. Well, then, uh, as I studied, and was open more to like my TBI, my traumatic brain injuries, then I started thinking about mindful walking, right? And this
Mm,
was explained to me at Marcus, as well, as like, when you walk, pay attention to what's out there, listen to the birds, or the trees, or see the things, and so when you share that with your family, then they start to do that,
yeah,
and it's one of those things that life is hard enough, and the little things that we can celebrate, and the little things that we can share together with the people that we hold near and dear, our families, our close friends, you know, that makes everybody better, and ultimately, I have always said that, life is not a competition. It's just an appreciation that we all have something going on. And, uh, but to be able to share the good things, because the bad things are going to come anyway. Anytime something
right.
bad happens, everybody's going to be involved, and have their 2 cents and things like that. So why would we not take the time out to share the good things? And whether that's a walk, or whether that's, playing golf, or going to a baseball game, or what have you, it doesn't matter. Why would we not choose to do those things, and find reasons to do those things, instead of make excuses not to?
Yeah,
And I think, by and large, it's the excuse riddled, symptoms that everyone blankets under PTSD again. That, well, I'm not going to do this because, or I'm not going to do this, and it's, the negativity of everything, and isolation, of avoidance, all those things. That's a choice, you know,
sure.
and
Yeah,
and
and to that point, it may even be, and I don't know 100% if this is true or not, but it may also be that the label that you assign to it, PTSD, or whatever the label that gets assigned to it, almost gives it that permission to have that sort of behavior where, okay, well, I'm not going to go out because I have PTSD. I'm not going to do these things because I have PTSD or whatever. Versus I have PTSD, but I want to I want to get better. So I'm going to go experience these things so that I can get better. It is maybe a different mindset to have versus I'm not going to because of the PTSD. You know, it's not like I'm not going to go run a marathon because I'm a above the knee amputee or something like that. You know, I'm okay. That's probably a legitimate reason not to. You know, why you might not do something like that. Not to say that you couldn't, with the right equipment and training and preparation, all that kind of stuff. But okay, fine. Like that would be to me a valid reason not to do something. But when you have something that is uh, a choice, like you said, and you can make that choice to go do that thing or to not do that thing. um, Sometimes it becomes that excuse, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the label is a big one,
Hmm.
um, and I think that our uh, comfort zone, if you will, and really it comes to acceptance, right? And
Yeah,
again,
sure.
I'm my worst and best example. So for a decade, I accepted that, you know what, when I don't feel like doing it, I'm not doing it.
Hmm.
And it was all for those reasons. Like, I get spun up, I get, uh, sweats, uh, anxiety through the roof. I'm hyper vigilant, all these things. So I'm just not going to do it.
Yep.
Right. So then through uh, some psychedelic treatment, a couple years ago through Marcus, understanding a lot of these things now about my brain, um, I realized, you know what? I don't have to accept being that guy. I don't have to just say, oh, no, no, I'm not going to, because I don't want to put myself in an uncomfortable position. So
Sure.
what would happen is, for me, I would present very well when it was a have to, and then you come back into your own walls in your house, and you're a raging asshole, because you're so amped up and you're stressed out and everything else. And so what happens there? Well, the folks that are near and dear get the worst, right? So there goes that negative ripple effect,
Yeah.
because now nobody wants to. There's no game nights. There's no walks. There's no, hey, let's sit and watch a movie. Nope. There's none of that. Everyone goes to their rooms and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
to counter that, you start taking anxiety medicine before an event. You take some during the event, and then you take some to get you on the ride home. Right. That's how I personally coped with, going to a baseball or football game with my sons. You
Hmm.
know, it wasn't ideal, but I chose that I was not going to not give them the opportunity to experience those things, because they deserve
Right.
that. So
Sure.
um, but what it did for me was take me down, empty the tank. My body would shut down. My migraines and my headaches would, be exacerbated for days. I'd walk around as a zombie for three days after, because my body was just playing catch up. And
Right.
so there had to be a balance. So understanding the brain a little bit better now, I can operate a little bit more efficiently, and I can do certain things throughout to prepare myself to do these things. And then I can do, they call them mental snacks, to kind of keep your brain, uh, balanced, to be able to do these things. And yeah, I mean, it is an excuse, it's a crutch,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be so. And so what I've done the last year, basically the last year and a half, is made a conscious effort that, I no longer accept that. I don't accept that from myself. I don't accept that from my providers. I don't accept that from the people that are supposed to uh, have my health and my well-being as a priority. So when you're not getting things that you feel you need to maintain your quality of life or improve your quality of life, you have to raise your hand and you have to say, hey, I need help, because that is the true strength. Asking for
Hmm.
help is a strength, not a weakness. And you have to no longer accept not being taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
um, life at this stage, especially for veterans and first responders that have served in any capacity, you deserve to be taken care of. You deserve to live your days as fruitful as possible. And I'm not saying, I don't care about the money aspect of any of that. That's not what I'm speaking of. I mean the quality of life that is between your ears, and the physical well-being of being present in your life and in your family's lives. That's
Right.
that's the goal for all of these folks. So, or it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talked a bunch about mental health and moral injury, PTSD, different things like that we have kind of covered here. But um, I want to talk a little bit of another thing that I kind of found out just kind of digging through some of the information about you and the kind of work that you do and everything. But the kind of concept of faith over fear, and so I kind of want to jump to that. Um, so how has your maybe personal faith helped you in dealing with the situations that you've gone through, and maybe what advice might you give for other folks who might be going through something similar, maybe haven't figured out the whole faith side of things? How does that all fit together?
But faith over fear is one of those things that you have to embrace and just uh, trust that you don't know what you don't know, and somebody else has that plan for you.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing is you have to believe, uh, pray on what you need, not what you want, right? Um, and trust that it's going to be provided somewhere in some shape, some form. Um, and it's just one of those things. It's in the military. We live a life of uncertain certainty, right? So I know it sounds crazy.
No,
Uh,
I get it though.
yeah, it's like I know what's going to happen, and then the first round goes down range and all hell breaks loose, and nothing
Yep.
is the same, right? So
Right.
but you train for a certain thing, because that's what we are geared to do. So
Hmm.
then you exit the military, and now it's you figuring out, hey, what do I wear today, or what's my hair look like, or whatever. It doesn't, I mean, to me, the military is pretty dang easy, right? They tell you what to wear, they tell you where to be, they tell you how to do it, and that's it. So trying to figure out all these things, and then what am I going to do? What direction am I going to take? So the uncertain aspects of life, um, we spend more time as a society trying to figure out things that are not even in the realm for us to figure out. You know,
Right.
um, this election coming up is probably one of them. I mean, it's like everyone is bashing this guy or this person, and it's like you know you're praying, and you're promoting the wrong thing. And I'm not. I'm a fairly religious person, and I've not always been that way, but I was raised in the church, and then got away from it in my adult years, and then have come back. But it's just one of those things that I'm not in charge of anything. I'm not in charge of uh, you know of the things that I don't um, I don't touch. Right.
Right.
So when you think about your pathway and things, some would argue that that's already been laid out for you. The worst thing you can do is get out of your way, right, or get out of your own way, because we try to determine certain things, and instead of letting life happen and letting life come to us, we are so adamant about go 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 that we often lose sight of of appreciating everything that we have right here, right now. And we always focus on the things we don't have, or
Yeah.
focus on the things that this person has or this person has, but not appreciating what you have. And I guess a year and a half ago, I started just what I consider. I mean, I don't do it great, but I try to live a life of gratitude. That I'm super thankful, even with everything silly and crazy going on in my life right now. I am grateful. One, for just waking up. One, for having clothes on my back or a roof over my head. I mean, you have to be appreciative of what you have, because it's been provided for you somehow.
Hmm.
And it's not magic, it's not any of those things. It's just, it's opportunities that present themselves that you maximize or take advantage of, you know.
Right. And you either take advantage of those opportunities or you don't. You get the ability to choose. And so going back to what we were talking about before, you can choose to isolate yourself, stay inside, don't do anything, have your family go off and do all these activities by themselves and you stay home and don't do anything. You could choose that, or you could choose to go with them
Yeah.
and experience those things, those positive memories and other things like that. Like those are choices that you get.
Well,
Um and
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 they are, and that's what the mindset shift occurs. And it's a mindset shift that promotes faith over fear,
mhm,
because you now say, you know what, I'm going to go to that sporting event. I'm going to go, watch my sons play baseball, or I'm going to go to a walk in the parking, or in the park, even though it's crowded on a Saturday,
yeah.
because you are now choosing that you are going to be taken care of. You're going to be okay. And you tell yourself that you're going to be looked after, knowing nothing. You know, you have
Right.
no idea, um, what other people are going to do, or what have you, but that is where you are choosing to be, because you are driven to do that for whatever reason, whether it's your son, daughter, wife, whatever. And the faith is taking that step, and not living based off of somebody else's diagnosis of the excuse and the crutch and this label that you don't have to, you know.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, this is kind of a funny story, but there's a EOD tech that I heard about a while back, and for the listeners who maybe aren't familiar with EOD, it's basically like the bomb squad in the military or whatever. But they, uh, someone asked this guy, how can you do the job that you do? Like, how are you not afraid of the bomb blowing up in your face or something like that? And he goes, well, look, I'm either right and everything goes according to plan, or I'm not, and all of a sudden it's somebody else's problem. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
attitude that he had about it,
Yeah.
right? But um, so it it was out of his hands, but he had, and I don't know this person personally, so I don't know specifically, religious affiliation or any of that kind of stuff. But he had faith that it was either going to go right, or things were going to be eh, things were going to be taken care of,
Yeah.
one way or the other. And so, to your point of, I'll go to that baseball game or that whatever the sporting event is, or I'll go to that movie or go for a walk in the park when it's crowded or whatever, and just say, look, it's either going to be fine. And I'm gonna go, and everything's gonna be great, and I'm gonna come back home, and I'll be perfectly fine, or it's not. And if it's not, then it was meant to be
Yeah.
that way, and just having faith that whatever is supposed to happen will happen. And um, I think that's kind of the mindset, the attitude to have. And we I think we can wrap our heads around an EOD guy saying it's either going to go right or it's not my problem anymore. Because if they were to be controlled only by fear, there's no way they'd be able to do their job.
Right.
right? I mean, that's a scary job to have, right? Um,
Well, and the other thing, and this is, I guess, what really opened me up and exposed me to this mindset was, if I walk into a crowded room and something happens,
yeah,
I like my chances anyway. You know what I mean?
right.
Because of my background, because of my training, because of my decisiveness, things like that. So why would I already predetermine, and dare I say, take the lesser, I guess, approach by removing myself from enjoyment or enjoying something with my families when I know that I'm prepared for that, you know?
Yeah,
And as long as you're aware and you acknowledge that, you know what, bad things are going to happen in the world, bad things are going to happen everywhere, um, and trust in yourself, trust in the universe, if you will,
hmm,
and have faith that, you know what, I'm going to be put in positions that I'm supposed to be in. Uh, if bad stuff is going to happen, I'm going to be placed in a position that I can help people. I'm going to be placed in a position that I can, uh, be of service to the folks that I'm supposed to be there for.
right.
And that's what it comes down to. Um, at this stage, it's like, don't predetermine or lessen your own life and your own enjoyment, um, because of the what if factors in the world. Because we'd all be in closets at that point. We'd
Right.
be in the broom closet or the pantry, and if that's how life, because bad things are out there, bad people are out there, and you it's almost like refusing to let someone else dictate your life.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And it's kind of that mindset. I know, like after 9/11, people were like, "Well, don't, I don't want to go on a plane because what if another 9/11 happens, or I don't want to
yeah,
be in a crowded area because someone might blow something up, whatever." These types of things were the attitude, the mindset. But then people are like, "Well, if you don't do that, then the terrorists win."
yeah,
Right. So don't let the terrorists win. You don't want to let that happen. Right. But also, if your family is going off to that sporting event or to the park or to the movie theater or wherever, and they're going to go do that anyways, with or without you,
right,
and I would much rather be there with them
100%.
if something does go wrong, so that I have the ability to offer some sort of protection. Like, to your point,
Yeah,
I like my odds a heck of a lot better than I did before I was in the military. If I had no military experience, my odds are a heck of a lot better than any of my kids or my wife who have no military experience.
sure.
So why wouldn't I want to be there to protect them?
Yeah,
And even if that's my sole mission is to, I'm going to go to this park so I could be there to protect them. And then, eventually as you're there, you're going to start to see, look, it ain't that bad. And it's like, you know what, maybe I could throw the ball around with the kids, or I
yeah,
can, play frisbee, or, whatever it is that you guys are doing, fly a kite, whatever. And, I can actually let my guard down a bit and enjoy the
yeah,
day as opposed to being on guard constantly. But
yeah.
if what do you got to tell yourself to get yourself in that situation? It's almost like that's not a bad thing, right?
Well, and I would mention to anyone listening that finds themselves in this position, uh, go to the park, find yourself an Overwatch position, watch your family,
Yeah,
and exactly what you said, and then assess the threat to the point of your comfort, and then enjoy your family,
yeah,
because that's where it starts, and it starts there, and you get to grow from that, because
right.
you go out to eat, certain people sit in certain places, and they're going to say, "Well, I sit here all the time for whatever reason."
Yep,
Uh, I pick my place. I'm not going to lie, but it's probably for different reasons than other people, right? So uh, continue to do those things, because that's what makes us human. But don't give up living every single day,
right,
and don't take that away from your family. Don't take that away from your loved ones or the people you share time with, because that's not fair to them. They didn't do anything to deserve that, and you don't deserve that either. So, make that first step, because it is a snowball, and it will ripple, and you will see how enjoyable life can be, even living with PTS. Because you know I try and drop the D off every time, because it's not a disorder, you know,
Sure.
and it's just something that you have. And I will say that any of these things, um, it's a rehabilitation model. It's
Sure.
not a it's not a medical model, right? And this was told to me this summer, was when you have PTS, or a TBI, or all these things, you're in rehab for the rest of your life, because you have to figure out how to function every single day,
Mhm.
just like it. And it could be something new every day, but it's not a magic pill that's just going to be given to you where, okay, you're all better. No, this is who I am. This is what I am for the rest of my life. I choose to make it better, or I accept it for what it is, and I no longer accept it for what it is. And
Right.
that's the challenge to most people, um, that they don't have to accept that.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a challenge. There are choices that people need to make. And full disclosure, I am not, for some of the things that I even mentioned in this episode, I'm not 100% great at making those choices that I put out there. Uh, I'm not comfortable in large crowds, and so yes, so more times I may choose to avoid them. But um, it's one of those things where you every day, like you said, every day you have to make these decisions and make a conscious effort to put yourself out there and eventually maybe get a little more comfortable doing
Yeah,
these things.
yeah,
And it's not easy. Trust me, I completely understand it's not
yeah,
easy, but there are people out there who can help with those types of things, and the work that you are doing. And I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about the organization, the First Coast Heroes Outreach, and let people know where they can go to find out more information about the
yeah.
organization and how they can get involved, whether there's if you need, I don't know if it's volunteers or donations, or even just people who need the support that you have to offer, where people can go to find out more information.
Yeah. So, First Coast Heroes Outreach, is our organization, and um, we nobody takes a salary, anything like that. So we're all in, trying to help one person at a time. And our channels are heroesoutreach.org is our website, heroesoutreach.org, and then heroes underscore outreach is our social media links. And there's some contact information on our website. There's also that obligatory donate button on that website. And what we take our money for is to get the we do resource fairs, things like that, to get education out there, to make sure that people know um, the help that's available.
Mhm.
And then we also have opportunity to provide some sort of counseling if need be. But right now, we're trying to not do that, because it is a reactive force,
Sure.
and there's plenty of organizations out there that are reactive. So we're trying to do the resource allocation and the education piece up front, to prevent crisis and to get ahead of the crisis. So doing that through awareness talks like this, or opportunities to speak to groups, firehouses, police stations, units, military units, things like that, because there is a need for that. And it doesn't have to be jammed down your throat, by some gal that is not in touch with the reality of it all. So being able to do that myself, I don't mind traveling and doing those things, to be able to let them know that, hey, you don't have to lose a decade of your life, to figure some of these things out. And we'll put you in the right direction, and give you some of those tools, and give you some of those avenues that will streamline your quality of life.
Right.
And it won't take a decade. So that's kind of the goals that we have moving forward. And it's just it's tough because you never know what your day's going to look like, and that's okay. As long as you get up, and you show that you're grateful to be awake, and to be moving around. um, life will continue to throw blessings in front of you, and this is one of ours that allows us the opportunity to help people, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
That's wonderful, and I'm grateful that there are folks like you out there who are doing the work, raising awareness, um, giving this information to folks so uh, they know what kind of resources are available before they get to that crisis stage. Doing the preventative type work so that they can uh, preempt these types of issues. And I'll have the link to the website on the show notes for any of the listeners who are looking to find out more information. I'll have social media links and all that kind of stuff as well. So heroesoutreach.org, but we'll have that in the show notes as well. So um, Teddy, I want to thank you first off for sharing, bits about your story and your background, and the journey that you went through to go from struggling to now being able to advocate for other folks and help them get the resources that they need. I think it's super important that not only people hear stories like yours where there may have been a time when you felt all hope was lost, but now here you are, um, and showing gratitude, showing appreciation. There are brighter days ahead for folks who are listening who might be in that same position where you were, a few years ago, and here we are having this conversation. I'm grateful that we have been able to have this conversation, and that hopefully some folks will hear this message of hope and get the inspiration that they need from this message. So thank you again for taking the time to come on. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. If I can say one last thing,
Yeah, sure.
a lot of guys and gals, these are the things they struggle with, and I believe that these five things are what lead to the 22 veterans a day. Uh, so you have PTSD, TBI, chronic pain, insomnia, and mood, which is anxiety, depression, what have you. So those are what I would say the fatal five, if you
Hmm.
will. And for me, I live with those fatal five every day, and I'm able to attack the closest alligator to the boat that day, and manage it, accept it, um, it, acknowledge it more so. Where now you're in control of those five things, and that alone has changed my outlook and my mindset on life. And for those that are listening, um, if you have multiple of those five, or all those five, just understand that hope is not lost, and that there is a lot of good things in the world that will help you attack one at a time, or all five. Uh, so please don't think that you're alone, or you have to uh, deal with any of this by yourself, because there's organizations that will help you every step of the way. So don't don't fall victim, don't become a victim, and don't lose that battle for you and your family. So um, again, Scott, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk and share, and appreciate you doing what you do.
Well, again, appreciate you coming on, and I do appreciate those words of hope that we kind of closed with there. Um, there are people out there. you might think you've tried everything, but there trust me, there are other things out there. You can try more. You know, keep going another day, and you'll see that things do get better. So,
That's right.
thank you again for taking the time to come on. Appreciate it.
You bet.